I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Here. Well, hello, everybody out there in Atlanta. This is Chris from MajorLegacy.com with another exciting episode of My Talking Head. Haven't done a whole lot of My Talking Heads in a while. Really have not been down to the parks as often or as much as I had in the past. Been kind of busy doing other things. So there haven't been a whole lot of My Talking Heads down there, nor My Talking Head Lives that I've been doing on Facebook for the past year or so. And also there haven't been any My Talking Heads because Halloween Horror Nights hasn't announced anything. So I haven't really got on camera to talk about anything. But now we finally officially have official announcement from Halloween Horror Nights and Universal Orlando, and that is for The Shining. Now we all know the slippery slope. Is that even a word? The slippery slope that The Shining has had up until this point. Full disclosure, I actually knew The Shining was coming way back in December, so I was actually there was a lot of things that were going through my mind at the time, and of course, everyone's got questions. Everyone had questions. What was this house going to be? How are they going to pull it off? Would it be The Exorcist of this year? Sort of maybe not doing a direct interpretation of the movie itself, but sort of doing a more psychological sort of feel to it, just like they did with The Exorcist last year. Because how do you pull something like this off, where basically everything takes place in one location? Yes, you've got ghostly elements and stuff like that, but The Shining to me is not really, Kubrick's movie specifically, is not really horror, I guess you would kind of say. It's more psychological, more thriller, more sort of supernatural in its approach. It's got the classic sort of creepy ghosts and things like that, and murder and intrigue and stuff. But I guess it's going to be difficult for them to maybe try and pull it off, but we'll see what they do. I put out on my blog not too long ago about how I actually feel about The Shining. I'm a big Stephen King fan. When I was a kid, I read a lot of Stephen King books when I was younger. I read The Shining when I was about 10 years old, and I read like stuff like Pet Sematary. I read that when I was 9. That's pretty much all I had in the house were Stephen King books. So when I read stuff, it was usually Stephen King novels. So I actually enjoy Stephen King's novel a lot more than I actually do Stanley Kubrick's movie. I appreciate Kubrick's film for what it is, but I'm not one who really holds Kubrick's film in here. I know there's a lot of people that love The Shining and that consider it one of the greatest horror films of all time, and they really hold it on a high pedestal. I am not one of those guys. I enjoy the film, but I'm not overly enthralled with it. It's not something that really kind of stuck with me, and I really kind of think that the book is better than Kubrick's version. Kubrick's movie is kind of its own thing. They're two totally separate entities. And I prefer King's book over the movie. When I was in film school many moons ago at this point, there were quite a few films that we would be shown that we would have to study ad nauseum. One of them was The Shining. We had a class one time where we literally watched The Shining for like 4 days in a row. And just analyzed the hell out of the movie. We spent like 4 hours one time just talking about the damn carpets in the hotel and at the production design of the carpets. So I guess there's probably some kind of psychological thing in my head too that's like, I'm kind of tired of it. As a matter of fact, I had not even seen The Shining in well over 15 years, because I saw it so much in film school. I just didn't feel like watching it anymore. Another one of those movies is Citizen Kane. We had to watch Citizen Kane at nauseum. We watched Pulp Fiction at nauseum. I mean, there was a lot of movies that we watched and had to study and analyze in film school that really kind of ruin a movie for you, in terms of just enjoyment factor. And The Shining is no different. But I am curious as to how they will pull this house off. I'm very interested to see if they actually do the hedge maze. That was something that I don't recall seeing anybody talking about. As I'm doing this video, it's possible they're talking right now on Twitter about what to expect and whether it'll be in there or not. I think putting the hedge maze in the house would actually be quite cool if they did it. And I'd welcome that, because that is one of my favorite parts of the movie, is the whole chase at the end in the hedge maze. And of course you have, Jack Nicholson's performance in The Shining is even though, like I said, I don't hold the movie in such high esteem like other people do, Nicholson's performance in that movie is something that that just transcends everything else. I think a lot of people, when they talk about Kubrick's The Shining specifically, they talk about two elements. One of those is Jack Nicholson, and the other one is Stanley Kubrick's cinematography in that film, because The Shining cinematography is superb. There's a lot of really good shots, a lot of really good production design in that movie. And I can't wait to see how they do this in the house, because that stuff is iconic. It's very iconic, especially the look of the Overlook Hotel, and things of that nature. The red rum and the twins and, stuff like that. I'm really curious to see how they pull that off, because it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but we'll see what they do. And the other thing is, okay, so this is not going to be Stephen King's The Shining, which I know is going to probably hurt a lot of fans' feelings, because Stephen King will probably not be mentioned a whole lot in the advertising, if at all, for this house. It'll be strictly Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Because for years people have said that, King, doesn't want his stuff at haunts and things like that. And I know that Horror Nights has been aggressively in the past and present, trying to, reel him in to be able to do something. But in the case of this, King has very little to do with this. This was, they went to Warner Brothers. It's a Warner Brothers film. Warner Brothers owns the film rights, so they went to Warner Brothers. They also probably, I shouldn't say probably, they did have to go to the Kubrick estate to get their blessing as well, because it's more Warner Brothers and Kubrick's estate that gave the green light to do this. King had very little to do with this, and I don't suspect him being mentioned a whole lot at all. And for people like me, like I knew and I was expecting that, but as somebody who enjoys Stephen King and who reads Stephen King and has read Stephen King, grew up on Stephen King, and who actually prefers the book over the film, that could disappoint some people. But nevertheless, it is what it is. So Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, our second house announcement of the year. We already had American Horror Story, and now The Shining. And I have a feeling coming up in the next couple of weeks here, there's going to be some surprises. We'll say shake it up. That's what I think is coming very, very shortly. But that's it for me, guys. So I just wanted to get up on camera real quick and talk a little bit about The Shining. I think I covered what I wanted to cover. So The Shining, yes, Shining is coming. We talked a little bit about Kubrick and King and how that works. Because again, I don't. The only thing that Stephen King could possibly have any kind of blowback from is the characters specifically in the film, because even though The Shining movie is Kubrick's and Warner Brothers, the characters are still his. So he might have. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if maybe we won't get some of the iconic characters that we're kind of used to, because King still owns those and they can't use them. I don't know. I don't know how that specifically is going to work, but we will find out. In the future. We heard Danny's Red Rum in the little video announcement trailer, so I would expect that to be in the house. We saw the twins. We of course saw the Overlook Hotel. I don't recall. I know we saw the Axe thing, but I don't recall seeing Jack Torrance specifically, unless I just missed it. I don't recall. Actually, I take that back. I think we saw shots of him running in the hedge maze. So I digress. But anyway. that is it, guys. So The Shining is coming. We will see how long it takes for them to announce their next house. It could be a while. That water park is getting ready to open next week. So I'm actually surprised that they did it this week as opposed to waiting until June, which might have made a little bit more sense. But nevertheless, publicity is publicity. So that's it for me, guys. The Shining is coming, and I will talk to you guys later.